Real talk here. I heard you and McElroy pretty much all week talking about Georgia-Bama. We talked about it all week here. There's this thing that sometimes happens. You said this. I perfectly agree with you. I align with you. There's this thing that happens where people get this idea in your head, like if you're Alabama, well, we got to run the ball for X amount of yards or we're not going to win. And then conversely, I've got games like Penn State and Oregon. Penn State ran for 297 on Oregon in the Big Ten championship game and lost. So it's not like a unicorn of a number out there. But you made the point, you've kind of made it on the show already a couple of years, but it really hits home, I think, this week for Bama, that there are multiple ways to look at them gaining rushing yards that don't always mean, here, Jan Miller, run this ball as far as you possibly can. So take me down the road, just philosophically, of what you think Bama actually needs from the run game, how that's accomplished, how they go about winning this game if they do.
I'd say, I think first it depends on definition of run game. If it's yours where you're going there, in agreements with McElroy and I, when you see a running back catch the ball out in the flat, that's an extension of the run game. That's essentially a toss sweep. And I think Kalen DeBoer, Ryan Grubb look at that as, we're going to get the ball wider, faster, with a better opportunity to get north and south and make a play in space than if we were to toss this thing out there. It also gives you the option of throwing the ball down the field on that play. Therefore, perimeter defenders, alley defenders, deep defenders have to stay there and play other routes. They can't come attack the run the way that they would if you turned and tossed it or handed off on a stretch zone. What people don't understand about this offense, Josh, is that the running back is often the initial read, the primary read, so they can get the ball first. And those are the plays that we're describing. So they don't have to just go turn and hand it off 38 times, 42 times for it to look like they've controlled the game. They're not going to let you play running back in this offense if you can't catch the ball. It's something that you're going to need to do, something that you have to do. And at the same time, Ryan Grubb is not afraid to find a hammer and play downhill. Look at Dylan Johnson late in the year, a couple of years ago at Washington. I mean, he turned into a guy that was running inside zone and duo 15, 16 times a game, going right at defenses because they knew late in games when they did build a lead, he could help them hold on to it and secure it. So this is not a game that I would look at it from an Alabama perspective and say, you got to get to 150, you got to get to 175 on the ground, because a lot of those yards could be clouded in the box score under the passing column, which they were essentially run plays with what the mentality was when they were being called. And I don't go too far out of the way with that with Georgia either, because they're a heavy screen team. And Zachariah Branch has been a much better catcher of the football than I thought he would be at Georgia. I knew he could run, knew he could burn. I thought it would be jet sweeps, use him deep a couple of times, make people respect it. But he's actually a better receiver than I've seen him be at USC. And he's a guy that can really make you pay on those screens. They get great blocking from the tight ends on the perimeter, which allows that too. So that's sort of their extension of the run game. And I would almost count those as rushing yards for Georgia as I would a traditional handoff, because of the percentages that they have to be able to go. And they're a lot easier on your quarterback. So both of those types of plays are going to be big for both these offenses in this game.
Do you buy into the idea, because I kind of do, that you probably see a little higher pressure rate from Georgia this game because of the style of team they've played so far, because of how quick the ball gets out in general against the teams they've played so far this year? It may not, I guess I'll say it this way, it may not be the best collection of competition they've played so far to reflect what this game may look like. And so I'll take that. That's one layer of the cake. The next layer of the cake, the reason I ended up going with Georgia slightly in this game is I've seen so many times how this Alabama team, specifically offensive line, just looks like it gets put in a blender from an execution standpoint, from a communication standpoint, from a penalty standpoint on the road versus at home. And if you showed me this magic 8-ball view where that offensive line holds up beautifully, not a lot of pressure on Ty Simpson, I probably think Alabama wins the game by double digits Saturday. Because outside, I think they got huge advantages. There may be advantages for Georgia on the perimeter, O versus D. I know there are. Bama, O versus D. I gotta see that happen. I gotta see that functionality happen on the road for this Alabama team before I believe it. How do you think that piece of it plays out?
I think it's going to have to be orchestrated. I think it's going to have to be drawn up. And you've listened to the show this week, so you already know the answer to this, but I doubt a lot of your viewers right now or listeners down the road know that there's not a Georgia defensive lineman on the team that's recorded a sack this year. They're tied for 115th in the nation in sacks. It's not what we're used to seeing. Other people kind of thought Elo Mendoza would solve some of these problems with being able to give you a little more twitch off the edge and being able to rush the passer, win some of those one-on-ones. So I don't think they're just going to be able to rely on front three, front four, maybe even with one extra pressure. I think it's going to have to be games, stunts. Guys are going to have to move. They're going to show things, get out of them. And Ty Simpson, keep in mind, he's been around there for a while, but the actual game experience is not deep. So environment, different looks, simulated pressures, could those things still be something that bothers him a lot? I think you're probably going to want to find out. Kirby Smart and company going to look at that and say, let's see what this kid's really made of, if he's ready to handle these situations. And if he does, he's got quick outlets. We mentioned the running backs. Cuevas has been great at tight end for Alabama this year. And where he could be extremely valuable if some of those things that we're talking about happen is he's great at just giving one thud, one shove, like getting a little, slab to the ribs and then getting out there for a quick outlet pass. And Ty Simpson's not afraid to challenge the middle of the field. And a lot of times when you get pressure, it's from one or two places, either right up the middle or off the edge. And if you want to try to go A-gaps on him, he's not afraid to put the ball there. That's not what a lot of quarterbacks in college football are comfortable with. He is. And so you have to be very careful with him attacking you there. I think it's almost kind of the story of the weekend in the SEC is pressure, how are you going to get it, and who all gets it. Like if you look at A&M and Auburn, it's the exact opposite. I don't think either one of those two teams are going to be pressure heavy in that game. But I think the front fours, you have to be very careful with what they can do to those two offensive lines that have kind of been up and down a little bit this year. You go to LSU, Ole Miss. We don't think there's going to be any problem for LSU getting pressure on anybody. But how much does Blake Baker really bring with the quick game and the mobile quarterback? You don't want them to be able to break you down because you got over aggressive and overzealous. And by the way, one of the teams tied with Georgia at 115th in the nation in sacks is Ole Miss. So are they going to get home against Garrett Nussmeier? If you run a twist off the right side, that'll probably be the way. And also, you referencing some of the Alabama offensive line as being in a blender at times. I'd like to know what you graded the tornado that the Georgia right tackles have been in a lot of the times in pass protection this season, because that's got to be like an F-42 with what some guys have done to them.
Hey, really quick timeout. We'll get right back to the video. Do me one favor. Make sure you're subscribed. It helps us keep the show free. It helps us keep the lights on. It helps us keep doing college football year-round, and we appreciate it. All right, back to the video. Yeah, one of them's got to deal with the road. The other doesn't. I have no clue what they're going to do on the right side. Look, it sounds by the looks of things, they're going day-to-day over there. Ernest Green looks to be out in this one. So
yep.
One, maybe two true freshmen. Is if Gaston goes, at the very least, one true freshman there. That's what I was going to ask you. So the Georgia ground game here and how everything works off of it. Like we were just talking about Bama. Okay, well, Bama for a long time, everything worked off the run game, play action, and then you got DeBoer in there, and it's nice to have it, but it's not mandatory you have it in the traditional sense, in the stat category. Okay, well, Kirby and Mike Bobo have run this thing forever at Georgia. So you got what you got there this year, but you've got that offensive line in a very much a state of flux. And then there are a lot of you're a big PFF guy, I know, so I'll throw the PFF stuff at you. You got the number 5 pressure front right now from Alabama.
What does that even mean?
Again, that's not my numbers. How you can't argue with this. You're trying to argue with science and math, buddy. That's PFF. That's not JDP. That's PFF. Write that down, Jesse. JDP. We could actually monetize that. So how does that little matchup play out? It's actually not a little matchup. It's a big matchup. How does that play out? Is there a world, in other words, where the Georgia offensive line is such a mess they can't even consistently function, and you're sitting there watching it going like, this is a disaster? Because I'd have a hard time. Kirby and them know what they have. I'd have a hard time as you grin bigger and bigger just watching them not be able to do anything. There's no way that happens, correct?
The times in which that's happened in the past, and this is twofold going back to both teams, do they need to just run the football? The times in which teams in this league have done that, their offensive line and their running backs, whether it's been Darren McFadden, Mark Ingram, Bo Jackson, Garrison Hurst, whoever you want to go pick out, were so good. It oftentimes didn't matter what front you were in or what defense you played. Like they were going to figure it out because the guys were that good. One, I don't think running back is that talented or that deep in the league this year. Not that some aren't good or great, but it's not like all-time SEC great that we've seen in the past. The other position that's not, we know offensive line isn't, is defensive line. And the times in which the things that you're referencing have happened and offensive lines have been just completely wrecked, like literally set up with sticks of dynamite at every position and just unloaded on in every series, has been when the fronts are all-time great. Defensive linemen, defensive tackles, edge defenders, linebackers. We don't have a lot of that in the league this year, Josh. The front sevens are not that dominant to where they can just play you light, kind of like Tennessee has done, or Tennessee, what happened to them against Georgia a few years ago, and why that game was so different this year when Georgia playing 4 in the box and they can't get a yard on the ground. I think the only 2 teams in the league that can maybe do that this year, one is going to be Oklahoma for sure. I think Tennessee has the capabilities to do it defensively. And I think LSU does, but I almost think that's more scheme than it is just bodies. Like that, this is not Booger McFarland and Marcus Spears and Tyson Jackson and those kind of guys up there. There's no Glenn Dorsey's in the league this year, really, especially inside. So the times in which you weren't able to do that and you were completely shut down that way, it was more because of the guys across from you were so good. It didn't matter if you were a mess or a wreck or didn't know where to go. They were just going to blow it up anyway, even if you executed it perfectly. Ask Les Miles when he went to Alabama and tried to run, toss zone or toss lead, whatever they called it, 57 times into Ashawn Robinson and those guys. That wasn't going to go, no matter how well they blocked it. So I don't think Alabama is that dominant defensively this year. I've seen Georgia run gap schemes where they get out in space and make things go. They get pullers in space. They find corners. They get guys kicked out. They have the capabilities to do it. Getting Tim Keenum's back going to help, but how many snaps do we really anticipate he goes? Like 20 max, I would say, with what you're coming off of. Jamarian Latham's a really good player. I think James Smith's a really good player, but they don't have Jonathan Allen's. There's not Derek Thomas's over there. So could it be a tough sledding? Could it be rough on them? Yes. Is it going to completely just melt? No, I don't think so. Because I've seen enough good snaps at times from the Georgia offensive line, and the backs are talented. And you're also throwing in a mobile quarterback, which changes. Now you got to defend my backside. You got to make sure you're not squeezing down that defensive end. That alley defender's got to be aware. So you're changing how you handle things defensively with what Gunnar Stockton can do. So, no, I don't think that it gets to that level because, one, not that Alabama's defense is not good, because that's going to be the whole comments are going to be filled up with that now. But it ain't Bama good, like we have talked about in the past. And I think everyone should be fairly comfortable saying that.
Did you pick a winner of this game publicly this week?
I have not. I was going to do that on the show tomorrow. I'm an Alabama lean right now.
But a lot could change at dinner tonight.
Yeah, when my 10-year-old daughter starts talking about the interior run game of both these teams and what she wants to see from a coverage perspective from both teams, that could completely go out the window.
Right. All right. Well, it's
in between unicorns and wicked discussion.
It is. It's getting dark there. I'm halfway confident you're parked in the handicap spot anyway. So plug Cube Show. Let people know where they can find it, and then we'll get you out of here.
Would never park in a handicap spot, even though I feel like I'll be eligible for one soon. Cube Show on YouTube, wherever you get your podcast. Having a terrible week, by the way. It's been rough. I guess I just did a bad job on this last episode. Last 2 have been pretty bad.
Probably a thumbnail.
So we're going to try to rally next week. And see if we can figure that out. Tuesday day night is cranking, though. We're crushing it over there.
Yeah, you won't.
McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Nobody cares about.
You'll be in football 5 more years max, and then you just become a general social influencer. Actually, Kat does, and you're the caboose in that whole train.
Well, if you keep posting pictures of her partying at receptions, then yeah, the business is going to pick up.
Yeah, that's the plan. All right, go enjoy dinner.
Thank you, Josh.
That's Cole Cubelic.